Welcome to Devon Video Chat. And today we're talking about gaming. And I've been joined with Loki, who is a bit of a gamer on the quiet, or probably not on the quiet, actually. He probably spends more hours gaming than he does do sleeping. And that might be something we might touch upon as we go through this session of gaming. But first off, what is the gaming world like at the moment with coronavirus going on? Is there more people gaming now? Are they spending their time doing that or doing other things?
Well, there has been an increase in the amount of people that have been gaming lately. Of course, it varies across platforms. But we've also seen a massive increase in people mobile gaming, which has been quite interesting as well. Sorry, go on.
No, I didn't say anything actually. I just lost your voice for a while, but one of those sort of things. So, gaming is a various different sort of things, isn't there? There's these different platforms and games. You can't just buy a game and think it's going to work on your particular machine, because they're very much like, if you go to PlayStation, it won't play on Xbox, and so on. If they unified the whole thing, would that not be a big plus to gamers?
It would be a big plus to gamers, but the thing is that there are certain games that you can play on the PlayStation that you can't play on Xbox. For example, one of their independent franchises is God of War, where you play basically a character called Kratos who goes through the Greek mythology, and Xbox has the same with a franchise of games called Gears of War. So you can't play Gears of War on PlayStation. So it would be nice if they could unify them all, but then again, you wouldn't have the competition.
I suppose it's also how they make the machines as well, actually, the different ways, that, like a cartridge or a download. What's the more popular these days? Is it to actually go to a gaming retailer or buy something online and actually have a physical piece of equipment in your hand? Or is it more now you download the game via the company that you're dealing with? Maybe you're taking up an ongoing payment plan, so you're subscribing to it. What is the most popular at the moment?
At the moment, with the COVID crisis, there has been a massive increase in what's called digital download, which, as you touched on there, is instead of having a physical copy of the disc or the cartridge, you actually download the game directly to your console. And there's been a massive increase in that. And Xbox has something called Game Pass, which gives you access to over 200 games that you can download directly onto your console with a monthly subscription. PlayStation also have their own version called PlayStation Now, where you can download the game directly, or you can actually stream the game from a separate server and stream it directly to your console. So instead of your console having the game installed on it, it's installed on a server in America or Oslo.
So it's a cloud-based operation then.
It's partially cloud, partially download directly to console. Yeah.
So if, for example, you're a youngster and you have that need to have lots and lots of games, different games, or you get fed up of a game, you think, I just want another one. It's got to be a lot cheaper, isn't it, to do it that way, rather than having physical copies stuck on a shelf?
It can be cheaper, but if you have the physical copy, you can go into certain stores. I won't name drop any particular stores at this point, but you can actually go into certain stores and trade your game in for store credit, use that towards getting a different game. So if you've played, say, Call of Duty, and you've played it, you've gotten bored with it now, you've got the physical copy, you can actually take it in, trade it in, use the credit for a new game. Whereas if you've got the digital version, you can't trade that in. So once you've bought that, it's yours permanently.
Yeah, but these games are not the cheapest things in the world, are they?
No.
We're talking
You're
what,
looking on average,
£20-30 for a game?
unfortunately not anymore. For your AAA games, which are the most popular ones, so things like your Call of Duties, your Destiny is another good example. You're looking at about £40 to £50 a game.
Wow. And if you were a subscriber and you were having the digital download, what would be the cost on that?
They would normally be about £40 to £50. Sorry, I do apologise. Normally about, as I said, £40 to £50 even on digital. But there is a plus side, which is if you keep an eye on your consoles, they regularly have sales on. So you can get it from £40 down to £24.99. So if you really want a game, then keep an eye on your sales. If you're not looking to pay £50, keep an eye on your sales because it will come up at some point.
6 of one, half does of the other, really, isn't it? You either pay the full price and you've got something in your hand, and when you get fed up with it, you go and sell it. Digital is cheaper if you buy it in a sale, but you've got nothing physical to go out and sell and exchange for. But if you say you bought a game for £50 and you went to one of these national or even local people who are dealing with second-hand games, say you bought it for £50, what would you expect to get for it second-hand when you sell it?
That's the interesting bit. It depends on how popular the game is and how many people are actually after it at the moment. If you took in a game that's about £50, I'm going to use an example here of Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield, which were games that were released for the Nintendo Switch. You were paying £49.98 last time I saw it. So when it first came out, it was, as I said, £50. If you were to take it into one of the shops, you'd be looking at getting about £30-35 for it. So you do take a hit from doing it that way.
So I suppose if you've had the game for 2 or 3 months and you've had a lot of pleasure out of it and you've sold it for that, the actual usage of that game really is only about £10 or £12 or maybe £15. Therefore, it's a reasonable amount of money that you've lost, but that's what you've invested in having that game.
Exactly. So as you said, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other at that point. It all depends on the way that you look at it.
I feel sorry for people who've got youngsters who are game fanatics, because it must be a very big outgoing on their lives. Because if you say to a youngster, no, you can't have the new game, but everybody else has got that game, I want that game now. No, you can't have it now. And if you're buying them a game per month or even per week, if it's per week, you're talking, what, £2,500–3,000 in a year. And then you've got the upgrades of the machines, because these machine companies keep changing their machines so radically and very, very quickly as well. Just going to bring another person in on this. Hello, Robbie.
Yep. Hello.
We're talking games, okay? And you've got a youngster, haven't you?
Yes.
Does he play lots of games?
Yeah, he plays a lot of video games. I'm only able to stay in this chat for a short while, as I'm actually expecting a call from my son so we can play an online game together.
So what we were
Superb.
talking about, and I don't know if you've been following any of this so far, that the difference between actually buying a physical game or the download version, there's not a great deal of difference in the costing of it. But how do you find that download games, do they have a better effect than having a physical game in your hand and use it into a console?
Okay, physical games, they do take up a lot of space if you have a lot of games. I've known that in the past, and getting hold of them obviously can be a bit more difficult than just going online and clicking a couple of links. So they tend to have a lot of advantages that way. However, though, you have to be careful when you're buying online for a digital copy game, because sometimes you're not actually buying the game, you're buying the rights to play the game. So it can be pulled away by the publisher at any moment. Whereas if you have a physical copy, that can't be taken off you.
Right, and I'm just thinking actually, because of what we were talking about just now, the fact that you can take these in and trade them in, and therefore whatever you got on the trade means that what was the difference between the original buy and what you sold it for, that's how much it's cost you to use it. But that also means that if somebody was to break into your house, nobody checks when you go to sell these games. That becomes quite a commodity, doesn't it?
It's got the potential for it. The thing is, though, the markup price you're going to make off some of these games when you sell them on isn't going to be large enough for people to want to steal them, I would have thought. Unless you've got something really rare. I'm talking about, say, a 20, 30-year-old game for a console. It's a classic game that collectors would be after. Yeah, I don't think anyone would really find the worth of breaking into my house and stealing a copy of Skyrim or something.
So what I'm thinking of here is actually with youngsters and slightly older people as well, even mature people who play lots and lots of games, because this isn't really just a kids thing, is it? It's right the way across all genders and all ages. Do you get to the point of, say, where your young un turns around and says, could I have this game please, Dad, because everybody at school's playing it? Do you get that problem?
Oh, I get that quite a fair bit. He'll ask for all sorts of games where they've been advertised to him in certain ways, or he's seen them on YouTube. The thing is, though, is I actually don't see that as any different to, let's go back 20 years, when your cartoons on the TV used to advertise the toys that all the kids wanted to buy. Example being Transformers. Everyone saw Transformers shows and everyone wanted to buy some Transformers, and Pokemon, for an example, as well. When that was on the TV, everyone wanted to buy Pokemon stuff. And modern age, YouTube is now one of the large advertisers for it. I'll use the example that I'm going to play with my son. Minecraft has a huge community of people promoting Minecraft on YouTube, showing what they're playing, what kind of fun they get up to, and effectively advertising it for free. And then, all the kids want a copy of it. They all want to play it.
Do either of you or people that you know tend to watch these channels with other people playing the game so they can learn tricks?
Yes.
Yeah. And the thing is, and I'll say to you exactly what I say to anyone else when they say about that, because they go, oh, well, isn't that cheating then? No. There used to be, and there still are, some guidebooks that you used to be able to buy for games. And people wouldn't class that as cheating. It's just getting a bit of help here and there. If you're stuck on a game, there is nothing wrong with logging onto YouTube and seeing how to get past the bit that you're stuck on. So yes, I will admit I do watch them, and I'm more than happy to condone people watching them, using them. You never know. You might find something you didn't know before.
Is there any particular person that you tend to watch anyway, or what particular game, Robbie?
At the moment, because I have been playing a lot of Minecraft with my son, I've been watching a lot of streamers showing how to build certain things, how to achieve certain parts in the game. But I wanted to add to the part of watching other people play online. Example being, there's a lot of tournaments that get held for a variety amount of games, and that has a huge following. And there used to be a large amount of people going, why are you watching other people playing a game when you could just play it yourself? And for that type of counter argument is sport. How many people love watching someone else play football, for example, here in the UK? It's an absolute massive thing. Hundreds of thousands of people, millions even, are watching other people play a game and get enjoyment for it, supporting teams, supporting favourite people. And you get that in the gaming community as well with gaming championships.
I must admit, actually, that there is a big plus in what you're saying, because if you talk about football, if people watch football, especially the youngsters, then they try and copy their heroes. Therefore, it brings it on. There was a whole thing about why do we have so many players from different parts of the world playing in our Premier League? Where are the youngsters, the English-born people? They're actually coming through, and that's actually going through to the national side now. So there is a big plus in watching other people to learn. Maybe one of you could tell me, wasn't there somebody who was playing one of these tournaments, ended up with a huge fat fortune? Was he playing Fortnite or something like that?
Oh,
yeah,
they're happening all the time.
Yeah. There was a young lad actually who won the Fortnite tournament last year, if I remember rightly. So you've got your Fortnite tournaments. There's also tournaments for games like one called League of Legends, which is a strategy game where you have to try and capture certain points on a overhead map. And you have a team that are working together to try and capture those points. And you've got another one called Overwatch, which they have different modes in. And all of these together come under a new category of sports called esports. And some of these teams, they compete and they can win millions. Wow. Absolutely millions from playing video games.
Just bringing out the fact being a lot of the money that they're winning in their prize funds is earned from the sponsorships and everything. The Fortnite, as you just mentioned, I just quickly Googled it. The players were competing for a prize pool of $30 million. So that's 24 million in pounds. The winner, so if they won entirely on their own, they win $3 million to themselves. And each winner of the duo, so two people working together in a team, they win 1.5 million each. That's some crazy money there. And the thing is that there is the revenue for it. The people are watching this, and it's getting higher and higher. It's getting quite crazy.
It's not one of those things to sort of say to your youngsters, look, you're wasting your time. If they end up being that good, it's going to be like any other profession, isn't it? You know, the more you practice, the better you become. The better you become, then you step up the ladder to the next level and so on. And maybe somebody within the domain of North Devon or even the whole of Devon could be that next big player that everybody wants to go and watch. Now, talking about away from watching, what is the style of games that interest different age groups, or is it right the way across the board? What sort of games do you like to take part in, Robbie?
Oh dear, that's such a broad spectrum style question. I would actually think that game genres don't tend to make too much of a difference with their audience, and that they're still learning it themselves. Now, granted, you're going to get games that are very graphically violent, horror-style games that are really scary, not on the competitive side, that wouldn't be recommended for children, obviously, for reasons like that. But at the same time, you have games that were originally created for its simplicity's sake, aimed towards the 8 till 12 demographic of age group, and yet adults are playing it and absolutely loving it. Example being, I think, Animal Crossing, that's recently came out. It was kind of meant to be a simple children's style game. You're getting people of all sorts of ages playing that game and absolutely loving it.
Do these games actually have like films, you know, a warning of certain age groups attached to them? So if it is graphically violent and everything else, this game should not be played by somebody under the age of 15 or whatever. Do they have categories on the games?
They do, yes, and they came in the 80s after a game called Mortal Kombat came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, straight away Robbie knows exactly where I'm going with this. Mortal Kombat is a fighting game, and it is an incredibly violent fighting game. And there was a lot of controversy when it was released because kids were going to be playing it. So there were boycotts, there were countries that were banning the game entirely. So what they did was they actually created a rating system so that they could turn around and say this is not appropriate for kids. So all of that actually came back, as I said, from the 80s, and it all began with Mortal Kombat. Because before then, you know, we've had the graphical limitations. I mean, thank you. Yes, it's called the E ratings in America, and I'm trying to think what we call it here. I'm not sure. Is it PEGI?
It might be, yeah.
Yeah, it might be PEGI, but the ESRB ratings are things like your American ratings and things like that. Yeah,
it's amazing actually how video games also have a culture that can follow through, and I'm thinking of Universal in around the world, but I'm thinking of Orlando. They have a new theme park which is due to open in 2023, and part of that park is Mario Kart is going to be an interactive ride, like a little roller coaster that you can get involved in. In fact, I think the whole area, what they're doing there is Nintendo Land. And if anybody gets a chance to have a look at what they're putting in there, there's Donkey Kong, there's Mario, there's a whole load of things actually they're putting in there. And that all started really as a video game. So it just shows you how many offshoots there are that go with it. What is your favourites? Let's just quickly go between the pair of you. Is it the cartoony type of Mario type of thing that takes you, or is it is it Minecraft that is a building game really? You know, I presume there's a Lego type game as well. There's the shoot 'em up, beat 'em up type of games. Loki, what is the type of game that sort of gets to you that you need to play?
For me, that's a really tough one actually, because I play so many different types of games. But for me, I'd have to say it's what's called RPG, which is a role-play game. So you basically create your character and you act out a second life, if you will, with it. So things like, as mentioned earlier, Skyrim, where you make a character and he can be the hero of the land, or something like a game called Monster Hunter. So basically you create your character and that's the aim of the game, is to beat the big bad or whatever, but you know, to create a whole new person, if you will.
Living in a different world.
I'm awful at
What about you, Robbie? What sort of games take your fancy? If you had like a list and you had to choose one particular type of game, what would that be?
Okay. Well, I'm a very social person anyway. I like talking to people and being with friends and everything. So the games that's always reached out to me throughout the years has always been co-op games. Games you can play with someone else, where you work together to achieve a goal, or a group of people as well. Now, unfortunately, that covers all the genres, and I've got that all covered. That you could have a first-person shooter, an RPG style. You can have MOBA, which is more recent, where you're beating up in groups of 5 to play online together against other people. This Minecraft thing's got its online co-op server. If you can play with someone else and you can help them out and they can help you, that's the kind of game that I'm keen for.
I know for because I know you both personally as well. You both go into gaming of not video games but D&D and stuff like that, which I think will be another video chat at some point. And
That's a
role
big topic.
play,
Oh, brilliant.
you know, like weekends away that you actually help promote and do as well, Robbie. I think there's going to be a whole complete chat on that as well, because there's a lot of people like myself who don't understand what this is all about. And maybe it's something what people might want to get involved in at some point or another. I think sometimes it's good to have an escapism. You know, that your world is as it is. At the moment, I'm just going to move. Oh, I see. I've got a fly or something inside the screen. I don't know how that is, unless. Let me just move something around, because that is quite interesting, actually. Let's just bring you back in.
Is it that?
Yes, it is. Yeah. That I was trying to move things around. It's the clock.
The
And I
clock.
thought, you know, we got a video gaming bug got inside the screen here.
There we go.
It doesn't matter. It's just that's how come I went to my TV screen here, and I thought I've got to move that. It's hanging somewhere. It's probably somebody else actually taken another persona and decided to join in the conversation. But one of those sort of things. So role play, that's one part of beat 'em up type games. You know, running around with a gun, shooting people. I always like to tell people that if you go and do that, it is a game. Don't go and do it for real, because people don't stand up and walk away afterwards. And I think a lot of people in the older generation, looking at me, sometimes get worried about that when you hear you know, some of the problems that they've had in America with massive shootings and everything else. Had they got it in their head that it's like a video game, let's shoot them all up, because at the end, when we switch it off, when we switch it back on, everybody's up and walking around and perfectly well again. It is a bit of a worry on that sort of thing. But let's have a look at the video chart, because that changes, doesn't it? Fairly regular.
Yeah.
So the best-selling video games at the moment are.
I'm just pulling them up now. Whilst I pull them up, there's something I wanted to bring up, which was you were saying about the different ages of people that play the video games. There is someone I think is absolutely amazing. Her name is Gaming Grandma. Her name is Shirley Curry. She's an 82-year-old grandma who plays the Elder Scroll games, which, as Robbie and I mentioned earlier, include things like Skyrim. So these are literally games that anyone of any age can play. There is no age restriction to being a gamer. So yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to bring forward.
I'm thinking about that, actually.
I don't know if you've heard, Robbie.
You know, most of these games, you need to have the use of your hands, your brain. You have to use both things at the same time, because controllers are not the easiest of things to master. And I would have thought that somebody in the older generation, if they've got a bit of joint problem, arthritis or something like that, maybe that would be a good way of staying fairly supple.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, go on, Robbie.
Oh, right. Well, controllers over the years have constantly been evolving and getting better and better. Example being, I'm sure you can remember back into the old arcade style days where you had the joystick stick and then you had 6 buttons, where basically that would be all your type of control by using the joystick to do around. Nowadays, with a more handheld controller, grab this as an example being, you can reach all the buttons, barely moving at all. Triggers on the back, thumb reaches to get everything done, and it's designed even to be comfortable sitting in your hand. It's been getting better and better. I'm only excited for what's going to be happening next, you know.
Is there a particular reason why it's green and pink? Is that so, in case you don't know where your left and your right is?
Well, actually,
no.
So
I'll let Robbie field this one.
With that, Loki. Oh, come on.
Right. with that particular console, that console is the Nintendo Switch. And with a lot of the games, they were designed to be able to be played with two people playing together. So if in a moment Robbie takes them out like that, if he turns them slightly so that we can see where the light sensor bars are. There we go.
Yeah.
See the green dots and the pink dots are actually the same buttons that are on the top side of the controller. The left and right trigger. So they are designed to be able to hold as Robbie is now. So if you hold it, if you would hold the controller, there you go. So they're designed to be held sideways like that, so that two people can play the same game on the same console together. So the pink and green is that you know whose controller is whose.
Right, so it's an all-in-one if you're playing when it's all joined together like that, or if it's two players, then you just slip it up. That's quite innovative, really, isn't it? Whoever came up with that idea. But that's only on the Switch.
Well,
Do they do that on the other games consoles as well, like PlayStation? Because there's a new PlayStation machine on the horizon, isn't there? And there's a new Xbox as well. They all seem to want to come up with something and then improve it, make it better. And if one does it, then the next one follows suit quite quickly afterwards as well. Which is the next one to be released? I think it's PlayStation, isn't it? PlayStation 110 or something.
PlayStation 5. They're hoping
console
to release. Yeah, I think that will be a whole different video chat on that one, because there is something called the console wars, and that would take up far too long, I think. But the PlayStation 5, they were aiming to have released for Christmas this year. I think last time I checked, the release date was aimed for December the 25th.
What, 2020 or 2019?
2020.
Right.
So it's aimed to be released later this year. They were going to be doing an announcement on the 4th of this month, but they've postponed it due to political reasons at the moment. And the Xbox X, as they've called it, they've released their specifications for it, and they're aiming to have that released end of autumn, beginning of winter.
Pretty dodgy, actually, giving out all the ins and outs and the specifications of it, because I would have thought that all the competitors are going, oh, we got a new one. Oh, we didn't put that on there, or maybe we ought to have it as X, Y, Z, B, or A, or.
It's a lot in the air. It is a lot in the air, and there is also a large amount of exacerbation. I guess that's the term. Exasperation.
Yeah.
Where they're making things sound a lot more than they're actually probably going to be, unfortunately. I don't know if Loki can remember back to the last generation of all the many things they were promising, and yet very small amount of that actually happened.
Yes. Prime example, and I apologise here because I'm going to nerd out. Robbie, Project Natal.
Project Natal, I wouldn't recognise that by name.
There was a Microsoft, when they were doing their Xbox, were sorting out something called Project Natal, which was going to be a video interface. It eventually was released as the Xbox Kinect.
Oh, yeah.
The things that they were saying that they were going to be able to do with that was absolutely phenomenal. And it was going to be completely groundbreaking. It was the next big thing.
Yeah.
When they released it, they couldn't deliver a lot of what they said that they were going to do. And in the end, I think they had about maybe 20 games that could actually use the project, could use the Kinect. And it completely failed. Now, they did end up sort of reinventing it for the Xbox One when it was released.
Yeah.
So the Xbox One game came with a Kinect, and I think there are currently 9 games that use it.
Not a huge amount, though.
Not if you're spending a few £100 buying it.
Yeah. It did not get the support, did not get the drive.
So as these machines get better and better, and basically they're no different from being a computer. So why have you got to keep buying new hardware to play the software, where they could just probably do an upgrade down the line? Because most of these are now connected to the internet. If you're playing games which are internet based, because they're in a cloud or wherever they're on a server. So why can't they just upgrade the machines instead of keep on saying, do you know what, let's do this? And I know some of the answer is Microsoft, for example. If you're using Windows, when everybody was using Windows 7, they'd already had in the pipeline the next 2 operating systems there. When 8 came out, they went, that's not quite working. That's all right, we've got 8 plus something else, and Windows 10, and now 10 plus something else. Somewhere along the way, there's probably some very clever people that have got Windows 12, 15 or whatever in the pipeline, because all they want is your hard-earned money. But why can't they just upgrade and maintain service packages and things like that? Surely, if you're spending a lot of money, if somebody turned around and said to you, you've got to buy a new complete operating system for your gaming machine or for your computer, if you've got to buy a whole machine and it's going to cost you £400 or whatever it's going to cost, or you can upgrade for, say, £75, and you've got everything, all the latest whistles and bells clanging and everything else. How many people would go for the £75 option, or how many people would say, well, I'm going to dump that machine, buy another one, and then the market's then flooded with second-hand machines, what nobody really wants, unless they're using it as an entry level. Where would you two be with that? Would you go for like that system of what I'm saying, or you'd happy just to dump the old one and buy the new one, Robbie?
Well, as you did touch on it quite briefly, it is a market of making that dollar bill. So they're always going to want to be competing and releasing new things for the community to buy. But at the same time, it's a competition. It's a technological race. Example being, I think your car is quite an advanced car, isn't it, Martin? Mm-hmm. And you've got a lot of fancy things in that car as such. Now, if you were to take a car that's, say, 15 years old, could you put all that technology, those sensors, in a 15-year-old car? Chances are that they won't be able to amalgamate properly. They need to rebuild from scratch. And this is why they're building brand new consoles, brand new things. It's the same with computer games, that you do, after so many years, need a new computer to keep up with the technology that's running a game. Because at the same time, they're trying to improve the games, make them bigger, make them powerful. What's a wonderful example being, if we go back to Nintendo 64, if we remember back to them. When did the 64 come out, Loki?
The Commodore.
Oh, crikey. You'll have to look it up now. But yes,
okay, when the Nintendo 64 came out,
graphical limitations.
The games were 64 megabytes. 64 meg. That is crazy small. I mean, talking about now, the amount of 64 megabytes has just been broadcasted to you through this video system the past 5 seconds. If we were to take this streaming system and try and put it on a Nintendo 64, it could not handle it. And that's how technology has got so crazy. We're talking about terabytes now. Back then, gigabytes was a terrifyingly huge number. Now we can say, yeah, I've got like 6 terabytes sat on this hard drive here. And, oh, yeah, this using this. And I'm going to download this 300 gig game coming up. It's going to take a couple hours, but I'm downloading it online. You couldn't even move that kind of stuff back then. And
So
that's
really,
an
I
example
want
of
to know what game
technology.
you're playing. It's 300 gig.
I don't know either. Probably
Yeah.
the latest EA game.
Not
so
far
really,
though, is it?
the
It's
word that
really
we're
not far.
the word we're
So,
talking
man,
about really is motherboard.
yeah, it needs to handle the processing and everything. And because you need to have a better one, you can't just software update your computer to handle more RAM. You can't download more RAM as much as people claim you can. It just doesn't work.
I think you've covered the reason
To
why
answer your
these
question,
machines
Robbie.
keep coming out.
Oh,
To answer your question, September the 26th, 1996.
there we go, 96. So that will put it 24 years ago. 24 years ago, and the games were about 64 meg, and a modern game size. Googling.
Modern
Modern
game
game
size,
size
you're
around
looking at
20
roughly
gigabytes.
about 30.
20 to 30 gigabytes, it's saying, yeah.
Yeah.
I can go back to the days of when Atari first came out with Space Invaders and a good old classic arcade game, and a particular nightclub, what used to be in Barnstable, was where we actually had a big screen up and invited the patrons there of Tempo, as it was called at that time, to battle it out on a game of Space Invaders. And because it was so innovative and new, we had so many people who used to come along just to play Space Invaders on a 50-inch screen. Now, I don't know how big that game was and how much the Atari machine could handle, but it was very, very tiny, and it actually went in on a cartridge.
If I remember rightly, it currently converts to about 12 megabytes. Off the top of my head, if I remember rightly, it actually converts to about 12 megabytes for the Space Invaders game.
Yeah, and the
original programming.
The hand controllers was like a black box with a stick sticking out and a red button on the side, and that was it.
Yeah.
Let's quickly move on to the chart, and let's see in the current chart to see how many of these games that either you or Robbie has got. I can answer this
Very little
question before you even give me any of those games. 0. Though I'm into the other type of game.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
That you get on your phone and your tablet and stuff like that, but we'll touch on that shortly. So where are we going? Are we going from 1 down to 10 or 10 up to 1? Let's go from 10 up to 1. Let's go in the reverse.
Go 10 up to 1.
Okay.
So these are these video chart for this week, or the week ending the 30th of May. In number 10, we have PlayStation VR Worlds, which is Peggy 16, and that's from Sony Computer Entertainment. Number 9,
VR World.
The Last of Us.
Yeah, VR World, is that when you wear a headset?
That is correct. The VR literally stands for the virtual reality. VR Worlds is a game where you basically go, and it's full of little mini games and things to explore, so you can get used to using the virtual reality headset.
Okay, so it's probably a little bit like bringing into your house what they used to do on Star Trek when it first started, where they went into a video room where they would be in a completely different setting than from a spaceship. So what they had then, they've now actually brought into something which you can have in your own home. Have you got any VR games, Robbie?
Not virtual reality. I don't have the rig. Quite honestly, the thing terrifies me. I've tried using it. I'm not quite used to it myself. It made me feel quite ill. I don't know if that ever happened to you, Loki.
It has, yes. Specifically playing Skyrim, actually. I ended up with motion sickness.
So are these things actually improved? Because I can remember wearing a VR set when I was away in Disney, and it really made me feel quite awful, and because it was fairly new technology. This is going back quite a few years ago. And then the last time I tried to wear one of these VR headsets, I found it a little bit more comfortable. Are they improving on that, or is it still giving you guys?
Oh
problems?
yes, improving a lot. Talking about when they first tried to go into VR headsets commercially back in the 90s, there used to be this giant screen thing that you put on your head, and it actually gave people neck injuries because it weighed so much just to have the screens in front of your face.
I think that was about the time when I tried it, and yeah, it was very, very heavy, and I was sitting like on a motorbike or something which was supposed to represent a motorbike, and it was like a Disney experience, and yeah, my head was like thumping like mad, and my neck was hurting like mad. But they've got a lot lighter and a lot easier to wear now, haven't they?
A lot smoother, which is why it's contributing to the motion sickness problem that I experienced, and I think Loki's experiencing as well. You get motion sickness when you're sat down in a car, but you look around and everything's moving around you. Your body knows it's not moving, but it's being told it is moving. When you're playing this VR game, you're stood still. You're in your living room or something, but you're moving. Every sensor that you've got is telling you you are moving, and that's causing the motion sickness. It's actually physically tricking you.
Okay, so that's the VR game. That's number 10. Number 9?
Before we go on to number 9, very quick one, touching on what you were saying about the how virtual reality headsets and that have evolved. The first virtual reality headset that was commercially available for video gaming was a headset called the Virtual Boy, released by Nintendo in 1995. And it was a black screen with red lines and marking where your characters were. And I don't know if Robbie remembers this beautiful little piece of equipment.
Are some of the newer ones? Are some of the new ones incorporating your mobile phone as well?
Yep, you can get mobile AR headsets, or trying to think, hoping Robbie can correct me if I'm wrong here, the cardboard box, I think they're called. I
know a song about
basically. Would that be one with a big fish and a little fish included?
That'd be the one, yeah. Sounds a bit fishy.
Unfortunately, guys, I'm going to have to get going now. I'm due a phone call from my boy to play some Minecraft. I wish you all the best for the rest of your broadcast, though. And I'll be looking forward to hearing more from you guys in the future, okay?
Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Look forward to having you back on.
Bye now.
Bye, Robbie.
Bye.
Right, number 9.
Number 9. The Last of Us Remastered, which is a survival horror game, and that is done by PlayStation Hits, so Sony again, and that is Peggy 18. Number 8, as Robbie is heading off to play now, we have Minecraft, which is age rating of 7. Which yet again touches what Robbie was saying about a game designed for younger people that us oldies absolutely love. It's brilliant. You just create whatever you want.
How long has it been out for, that game? Because it seems like it's been around for an eternity.
I'll have to double check, but I think it was about 2011 when it first came out.
But they've upgraded it many times, haven't they? Because there's so many different versions.
There are quite a few versions, if you will, because Minecraft is on almost every console. No, tell a lie, it's on all consoles.
And computers as well?
2009.
Is it on computers as well?
It's on computers, it's on mobile. It's on Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo Switch. I think you'll find it's even on Google Stadia, which was a platform. I'm kind of begrudge calling it a console, but a platform that is entirely cloud-based. But yes, it was... first came out its public alpha in 2009, but then was officially released in 2011 for everyone.
Right. Okay, let's move along with the chart because time's getting on.
Number 7, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order by EA Games. That is a PEGI 16 game, which I will admit I do have and is absolutely brilliant. I also have Minecraft. Number 6, Days Gone, which is a PEGI 18 by Sony Computer Entertainment. I actually don't know anything about that one, so I'll be looking that one up. Number 5, FIFA 20 by EA Sports, which is a PEGI 3, which is it's the typical FIFA football game. Number 4.
Before you move on, they bring out these like FIFA 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. How much does the game change, or is it the fact that they're using certain players who are featured in certain teams? The rest of the moves and everything else is exactly the same.
Yep, they bring in players from the teams as the rotations change. But also one of the things they do is the graphical upgrades. The graphics are improving exponentially every year. Doesn't mean they always get it right. Prime example would be WWE 2020. The graphics had improved. Pardon?
2K20.
That's it, 2K20. The graphics and everything improved, but it was hit very severely with bugs, which kind of let it down, unfortunately.
Yeah. So if you've got a copy of FIFA 20 and you had a copy of FIFA, I don't know, 15, apart from the players, the actual quality and the gameplay and the effects are vastly different.
Vastly different, yes. And you don't even need to go back as far as FIFA 15 for that. If you look at the graphics from FIFA 19 and compare that to the graphics of FIFA 18, because that was one of the ones that I really did note the graphical improvement on, and that was released literally a year apart, and the graphics were just so much better. So sometimes you don't even need to go back as far as 5 years.
Okay, let's move on that chart again.
Number 4, we have Grand Theft Auto 5 by Rockstar. That is a PEGI 18 game. Basically, you create a character who is trying to rise up in the criminal underworld. Number 3, Call of Duty.
I've got 1 and 2 on that. Grand Auto.
What, Grand Theft Auto?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, you know exactly what I mean then when I say about having to try and rise up in the criminal underworld.
Well, yeah, I thought it was a bit strange actually because I kept bumping into me and a few other people I knew, but that's another story. Let's carry on.
Number 3, we have Call of Duty Modern Warfare. That is a PEGI 18 by Activision. At number 2, also touched on earlier, we have Animal Crossing's New Horizons, which last week was actually at number 1. That is a PEGI 3 created by Nintendo.
Just remind me
and
what
this week's number.
What does PEGI stand for again?
PEGI is the age rating, and I'm explaining that bit purely whilst I type in to find out what PEGI is an acronym for.
Yeah, so if it says PEGI 3, that means it's suitable for anybody from 3 years old upwards, is it?
Yep, exactly.
PEGI 18 would be 18 plus.
Yeah. And as I said, those ratings.
Like parental guide, is it? Educational guide or something like that?
It stands for the Pan-European Game Information.
Right. Nice one.
And it. Yeah,
And she wanted
it's
to be a
the
yellow
video
coat.
game. Sorry, pardon?
Peggy always wanted to be a yellow coat. Hello, hello. Heidi, hi.
Oh dear.
Yeah, never mind. Let's move on then. So we got
Yeah,
to number 2, which was number 1 last week. So what's number 1 this
that
week?
was Animal Crossing. And number 1 this week is yet again Nintendo. And it is a Peggy 12 game called Xenoblade Chronicles, the Definitive Edition.
How often do these games change around? Because, you know, like Minecraft and some of the shoot 'em up games, they seem to have been around for a long, long time. So if a new game comes in on the market, it's got to work really hard to actually gain enough people. It's unlike the music charts, which, well, they tend to like move around a bit. A few years ago, you know, if a song got into the charts and it was there for 8 or 9, maybe 10 weeks, it then became a classic. These days, you know, the chart, the way they organize it now is somewhat different. Is that the same with the video gaming chart? You know, is it done purely on sales or is it done on recommendations? How do they work that out? Because if something's been in that chart for, I don't know, a year or 2, that means it must be selling a lot of games, or doesn't it need to sell a lot to get in the chart? Do we know the answer to that?
I actually don't. I think that it's done purely by the amount of sales. But I will look into that for next time.
Yeah, it might even be how often it's being streamed as well. So if somebody's hooked to a game and they keep streaming it, therefore it's going to keep the popularity of it up on that chart, I would have thought.
Yeah, as I said, I'll definitely have to have a look into that one, and I will come back to you with an answer there, because I'm not 100% sure. I mean, there is another chart that I will quite happily sit down and have a chat about at another point as well, which is the video games of all time.
Right, the classics.
Which is yep, and that's got things like your Mario 64, Donkey Kong, and up until 2011, the most sold video game and the most popular video game was, if memory serves, Tetris.
Oh, right. Okay, so that comes to a close for our video chat for today. It's been about video gaming here on Devon Live Chat. We're going to do another one of these in 2 or 3 weeks' time. We'll be looking at different things like the free games that you can get on phones and tablets and everything else. We'll also be doing another one actually on D&D, and Loki will tell you what D&D stands for. It is
Dungeons and Dragons.
Right, and there's a lot of people.
Which is a tabletop one.
Yeah, a lot of people play that, and I know there's 1 or 2 people who want to come in and talk about that. So until the next time, thank you to Robbie, who had to disappear, but his contribution was great. Thank you to Loki, and thank you for watching as well.
Take care.